Happy Monday. Welcome into the show. You're watching Philadelphia 76ers Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. No matter where you are, how you're tuned in, we appreciate you for making today's show a part of your day. And obviously, thank you so much for watching all of our content, especially the videos that went out over the weekend. And let's start off the week with a bang. Coming up here on the show, how the 76ers can land Mikal Bridges and the latest trade rumors around our top trade target for Philadelphia this offseason. And then at the back end of the show, this is really intriguing to me. Could the Sixers look into signing Jonas Valanciunas in NBA free agency? He would be a really legitimate backup behind Joel Embiid. Stay tuned for some thoughts and information on that. Let's begin, though, on the Bridges front, and we're going to hit a couple of different new angles here on the show. What will it take to land Mikal Bridges, and how could Philadelphia bring him in? Because I believe that he would be the ideal fit next to Tyrese Maxey as well as Joel Embiid. First, you look at his contract here, and for the player that you would be acquiring, this checks off a couple of boxes that we're about to discuss here on the show. Obviously, most notable when you look at these financial figures here flanked to my right, very affordable player. 2024-2025, he's under contract for $23.3 million, and in 2025-2026, $24.9 million. You consider how he would factor into this team and on this team, and how he would fit alongside Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid at this price point when Tobias Harris was making $36 million. This is a great bargain here, great value, and it still allows you to build up the rest of your team. Because I think what we're seeing here in this post-Big Three era is that you need those two marquee superstars. The Sixers have that with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. Outside of that, you need to have quality depth, and this would allow Philadelphia to do that. So, in short, this is such an affordable number for a player that would fit perfectly on Philadelphia's roster. On top of that, what did Joel Embiid mention wanting to have after losing to the New York Knicks in the first round? By the way, bye-bye, New York Knicks. It gives the Sixers continuity because Bridges is under contract for the next 2 years. Why it would also be perfect, you talk about the affordability. You build up the rest of this Sixers roster. That's point number one. Point number two, he is still a young player. So we can flip the page to this, and he's under contract for 2 more years. I've seen a lot of you in the comment section saying, why are we going to go after LeBron James, Paul George, another one of these older players, Jimmy Butler, Kevin Durant, the list goes on and on and on. Bridges isn't that older player. So you get younger here, and I'm not going to call him a star. He's a really good number 2, a great number 3, but he's young, and he's under contract for the next 2 years. And then you talk about what he brings to the floor for Philadelphia, a very, very good two-way player who's an excellent defensive player. And as far as his fit goes on the offensive side, he can create his own shot a little bit, as we saw post-trade deadline 2 seasons ago when he was dealt to the New York Knicks. Or if he doesn't demand the ball or need the ball because he was the number 1 option for New York, or Brooklyn, in New York, he's comfortable with being off ball and that secondary or third option alongside an Embiid or a Maxey. And you look at the numbers over the last 4 years, there's a couple of notable trends here. He's been a durable player, never injured, an Iron Man of sorts. You look at the growth in his game. Last 2 years, he's hovered around 20 points per game. And then there's that consistency factor as well. Last 2 years, he's been around 37% and 38% from 3. And he would just fit on this team so much better than a Tobias Harris, who you could tell felt uncomfortable and out of sorts because he wasn't involved in the offensive game plan, because the game and the offense runs through Maxey as well as Embiid. And then you also take a gander at some of the advanced shooting numbers. And Bridges would be able to give you value in these categories as well. Restricted area. He can finish around the rim because he has good size, good length, and he's tough when taking it to the rack. I remember watching him at the Liacouras Center when he was playing for Great Valley as a high schooler, and he was this highly touted recruit. I'm looking at him at the time. I'm saying, he is a string bean. He needs to add weight at the next level when he goes to Villanova. As far as his NBA future at that time, I wasn't sure because he really had to fill out that frame. Now, he's always going to be long, wiry, a little bit skinny. That hasn't kept him off the court. That hasn't led to a lot of injuries, but he's bulked up at least a little bit. So he can finish strong around the rim. In the paint, non-restricted area, 41.5%. That's kind of that pull-up jumper, floater, variety, mid-range jumper type of area. In the mid-range, by definition, 40.8%. And then from the three-point line, 37.4%. That'll play. And he did that last year on the Nets team when he was some nights the number one option. With Philadelphia, alongside the process, Embiid, and Maxey, he's going to get a lot of open looks. Could those numbers go up to about 40% just naturally with him having more open opportunities and more open looks to put the biscuit in the basket? Now, going back to that question, what would it cost to land Mikal Bridges? The new update here, I like what the Sixers Wire did in bringing in a writer from the Nets Wire to get the Nets perspective on them dealing Bridges and the Sixers trading for Bridges and what that cost might be in a trade. Here's what the Nets Wire had to say. The main asset that the Sixers would be able to offer the Nets would be the first-round picks that they have available from this upcoming 2024 draft, 16th overall in the first round, all the way up until the NBA draft in 2030. Philadelphia only has 4 players under contract, but Tyrese Maxey will most likely be on the team next year. I don't see the Sixers giving up Maxey in a Bridges trade. Of course they're not going to do that. When they didn't have to and want to include Maxey in the James Harden trade that happened 2 years ago, investing in Philadelphia's future could be worth it for Brooklyn within a vacuum, but the Nets are already invested in the Phoenix Suns' demise, and those draft picks convey soon enough given the uncertainty in Phoenix right now. Plus, the Sixers may not be able to depend on MVP center Joel Embiid 5 years from now, but Maxey should still be there. So Philadelphia's future is not necessarily as bleak as a team like the Suns, for example. So the translation there is that Philadelphia, and we know this because they don't have player assets to give up in a trade, would have to give up some picks. If the Nets are looking to rebuild, and let's face it, I love Bridges as a player, but if he is their main trade asset and he's their best player, you're in a bleak spot as an organization because he is not going to be the number one to lift you to an NBA championship, even the playoffs, right? The Nets here, though, if they do want to reload and rebuild, could stockpile a bevy of picks from Phoenix, from Philadelphia. Maybe Bridges has some sway and say as to where he goes. I grew up in the Philadelphia area. Mom working for the Sixers. They drafted me. Philadelphia wants to right their wrongs. Bring me in. I'd like to go there if possible. Please don't go to the New York Knicks. Other teams might have more to offer, of course, but Brooklyn could just put together all of these draft picks, and that's how they officially start this rebuilding process here. Now, Bill Simmons on the Bill Simmons podcast, alongside Ryan Russillo, of course, threw out a juicy rumor that's been hot on the NBA streets for quite some time now, ever since New York went all in on bringing the Villanova Dogs together. He said, watch out for the Knicks to target Mikal Bridges via trade. They do have a lot of draft assets and a little bit more as far as player assets go. Sixers, ladies and gentlemen, just simply cannot allow this to happen. The Knicks are now a team that you're competing with. You just lost to them in the first round, and you can't let them leapfrog you once again. You have to leapfrog the New York Knicks and land this player if it becomes an arms race. As for the 76ers draft capital, here it is, and these could be some of the selections here that could convince the Nets to make a trade. You have the first round pick in 2024, 16th overall. And in the NBA, by rule, by the way, you can't trade first rounders in back-to-back years. 2026, first-round pick via OKC, Houston, and the Clippers. Sixers have their own first-round pick in 2028, and then another first-round pick in 2028 from the Clippers. So you can't trade your own first-round picks in back-to-back drafts. But the Sixers there in 28 have 2 first-round picks, one of their own and then one from the Clippers. In 2029, you have the first-round pick swap. So that's the pick swap. It's not their own, and then another first-round pick in 2020. The Nets would be rooting for the Sixers' demise so that those picks would become a little bit better. Hopefully for the Sixers' sake, there is no demise. Bridges did dip a little bit as far as his production and how he looked this past year because he was looked upon to be a top option for Brooklyn. That could be a good thing, though, for the Philadelphia 76ers because that could make him more affordable, whereas last year they thought maybe he's a blossoming star. Now, the jury is pretty much decided that Bridges is more of a number 2, an excellent number 3. What do the Sixers need? A number 3. I don't think they need another star because it clogs things up alongside Embiid and Maxey. So, interesting stuff there, certainly, on the Mikal Bridges front. And if you want the Sixers to trade for him, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon, like the video right now. If not, I want you to comment why. Now, coming up next here on the show, Jonas Valanciunas. Could he be a big backup option, literally and physically, behind Joel Embiid? Because the Sixers, according to some buzz, could look into signing him in NBA free agency. Stay tuned for that conversation. First, today's show sponsored by PrizePicks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app in the game and the only DFS app that I use. It's the largest one, in fact, in North America. They make daily fantasy sports so easy where you pick 2 or more players, you choose more or less on the projected stats, and you can win up to 25 times your money. Pick 2 or more players. It is that easy. Pick more, pick less, pick PrizePicks, and you get a $100 deposit match if you go to PrizePicks.com/CLNS. The Eastern Conference Finals are set. It's going to be Celtics, Pacers. Drew Holiday, more than 12.5 points. TJ McConnell, more than 9.5 points. He's been cooking. So a little bit of a special here with 2 former Sixers in Holiday and McConnell. It's been awesome to see both of these players thrive. But how about the growth, the development of TJ McConnell? He has become a stud backup point guard for Indiana. So important to what they do. And then Tyrese Halliburton, less than 19.5 points. Eastern Conference Finals getting underway on Tuesday night in Boston. Easy and exciting daily fantasy with PrizePicks, PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use that link, get a $100 deposit match. All right, let's shift gears to Jonas Valanciunas here. Mike Scotto with this report recently that there's a sense that Jonas Valanciunas won't return as a Pelican this offseason in NBA free agency. Now, that was a little while ago, right? Kyle Neubeck, though, and I wanted to revisit this, quote tweeted that report from Scotto and said, I reported this around the deadline, but the Sixers did kick the tires on a Valanciunas trade this year at the deadline. I wonder if they'd circle back on him and if he's willing to be nailed as a backup at this point. Couple of takeaways from those potential developments there. I have been clamoring, I have been asking for the Sixers to fully invest in a backup center behind Joel Embiid for years now. The key here for Valanciunas is he willing to be a backup center at this point? Because literally throughout his entire career pretty much, he has been a starter in this league. He's 32 years old, but he's still capable of starting for a playoff caliber team. Going back to what I originally said about me just wanting the Sixers to invest in a backup big, number one, you have the financial resources right now to do that. Number two, the plus minus without Embiid in the regular season and the playoffs continues to be a massive issue. There's a huge drop-off on both ends of the floor when Embiid goes out, either to get a breather and get some air, or if he's injured. Which then brings me to point number three. Joel Embiid has a lot of injury concerns. He's not getting any younger, and he continues to get hurt a lot. If Embiid were to miss time, And I think that the Sixers, by the way, should do a better job of managing his minutes in the regular season and managing his games played. Who cares about regular season accolades? You got your MVP. If you can only play 50 games, that's fine. That can be your sales pitch to Jonas Valanciunas that, hey, I know that you could still be a starter in this league for a playoff contender, but we can give you some decent coin and you can still start 20 to 30 games and have a sizable role in the NBA playoffs. And look at what the Minnesota Timberwolves have done. I was always lukewarm on pairing up Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert, but they play those two players a decent amount on the floor together. Could you get away with some lineup combinations of having Embiid and Valanciunas because Embiid can stretch the floor a little bit and the offense sometimes runs through him around the perimeter, whereas Valanciunas strictly on that low block. He's been a productive player for a long time here, and you look at the numbers over the last 4 years, 2020, 2021, 2021, 2022, right around 17, 18 points per game, double figures as far as the rebounds go, always pretty efficient with the field goal numbers, 59%, 54%. Last couple of years, those numbers have gone down, but he's played on better offensive teams. And that's why those numbers have dipped a little bit. Physically, he's still the part. He's hard to move because he's a mountain of a man, and he is not going to knock down a lot of threes, but he does have a corner three in his pocket from time to time. As you can see, last 3 years, 2 3-point attempts, 1.5, 1.5. So occasionally, he could stretch the floor at least a little bit, but primarily he's going to live with the hook shot, the baby hook, and some good touch around the rim, and he's going to be a really good rebounder, and he's a pretty good defender too. You want to drop him in some drop coverage, you're not going to get burned like the Sixers have so often when they had the corpse of DeAndre Jordan and Greg Monroe and Dwayne Dedmon and these awful backup centers. So Valanciunas, the ideal backup center to Embiid, but is he willing to take that role? Again, the sales pitch, you can still start a lot of games, and you're going to be asked still to play a lot of minutes on a team that has championship aspirations. Let's round out with this. Should the Sixers sign Jonas Valanciunas? S for sign, P for pass. Hope you all enjoyed today's show. You're having a great start to a week. You had an awesome weekend. We'll catch you tomorrow right here on 76ers Now.